first one I see Marks Octos.
All right. All right. Yeah.
All right, so we're
I got it.
good.
The greatest conceivable being existent in terms of morality. Premise one is that everything is GCB potential and non-existence conditions. For example, of Coke is dependent on labor for plastic existence. Premise two is that GCB is not dependent on preconditioned notion is greater possible. Dependent would be greater for example, we think humans are greater than cookies. No cuckoo would be humans. And premise three is that since the GCB has no conditions for existence, necessarily exists conditions. For example, like to take a finish test, that's a finish wall. Understand God is the greatest conceivable being exists. Premise says GCB ID in the mind greater than GCB mind inequality since greater than GCB. The GCB can only exist in mind in reality. GCB exists. Premise not only like GCB must exist in the reality. Two to accept or non-belief is to trust your mind. Is being a mental facility, natural disabilities, adaptation, interest, and children to behalf of the GCP is required to order conjunct faculties to justify facing the judgments, means anxious, self-refuting, abstinence, the belief in the GCP's possible. Three is regress every event as a cause and cause. Determine if your regress as GCP additionally requires and determinism so far as emotional will life. This system generally wired into conscious will, the free will, the GCP, and Ford's classical which would default to belief in the GCPs and GCPs wills infinite badness to rationally find is insurance really bad fight for activity. You can't contest the arguments and want to see that first mover. The conceived of the GCP collapses the affirmative to standard consider the GCP will. The GCP's will is infinitely good. Goodness is the definition greater than GCP's will. Good is something. The GCP greater than incoherent and paradoxical. I firmly resolve in the United States Hampshire College. I'll not consider ICT in the best place in undergraduate admissions. First fact I will listen to the after here's the change in CX offense. The GCP is omnipotent since power is greater than having power, having control of everything. Thus nothing can happen. The GCP will and the GCP will the status quo and the GCP is unconditionally good. The status quo is perfect affirming it's the status quo. Hampshire passed it. Last 15 dropped 10 right sets from application distinct from top show. Look the GP over H reports that classified students of color are to be affirming is harder. All theory groups implicit affix and infusion and by sideways for fairness under uniquely provides how is a structural shock. 19 negligence the difference p value is the component negligence of favored significant disparity skill level always empiric channel for all analytic factors. That's why we trust experience over analytics. After your RV, no RV, I dropped it. Debater comedian interprets interpret theories after regardless of what they point in FPV, so always impossible. Check and see if and justify getting into the F never getting into theory, reciprocity issues, more time French wonder, justify paranoid issues. You couldn't mess out of it and reject theory and count spikes of the contradiction. They indict each other for intellectually pro. That means all contradictions flow out. Since any contradictions are your fault, appearance comes up hard. MC arguments 8.1 AR can engage in multiple layers. The speech is already time and viewpoint sets up an invisible 200. There are millions of unfair things you can do to win around inclusion. Is the fallacy of origin don't apply. Just treat each spike as an independent offensive theory in which the negatives drop the barrier key to norm setting provides strong incentive for paradigm disorders and no 200 theory or paradigm issues 8.0 overloads the 2 error with massive clarification burden because to be point because impossible to check and see based reason why it happened in the 200 there will always be multiple conflicting interpretations of revolution. The emphasis starts somewhere, which means you should accept mine. All negative trips are counter-trips. Since the F takes an implicit stance on every issue requires a theory. REI to become offensive. F means the state affirm means the state of fact valid after theory debate after the 1 error 8.6 minute 2 can dumb theory making the 3 minute 2 error impossible. B point we both go one speech on theory so no 2 framing framing issues or responses. 8 point destroys F ability to frame them around key to rate force and then can upload the 1 and C. It's the 4 minute 1 error makes it impossible to wait a non-player and to B point is reciprocity. I can make 2 error responses. There are no 3 error. You shouldn't be able to pin the F and defense. C point is implications are clear out of AC arguments. You got new arguments expanded violations, but they are arguments of self 4 5 one layer vote out 8 point the NC's reactivability not layer inclusive. I have to spend half time justifying why things the layers are extremely inferior. When I don't have time to multiple layers preclude your 2 responses and answer NC arguments which I extend my own in 4 minutes and per assumption of permissibility from 8 point we also default something true rather than proof also it would be possible to make any truth claim burden of proof is on me B point agent reflect on nation all the time and through taking action because justify actions I'm morally drinking water is not morally right or wrong. You'd have to justify action every time decide on it. It would be never possible to make action 6. Neg cannot retrain issues against the after or use a beta class. They must line bound. The 1 error doesn't know the implications of the arguments. They cannot spread me in the 2 and 2 AR has no chance to recover 6 3 times 2 arguments and accept after interpretations as speaks first consistently defining the round of self value. Any conceptions incoherence and defined before entering the role of values to vote for the bidder who defends the truth or falsity of resolution. F must prove a truth, neg must prove false, prefer 8 point is sective. 5 dictionaries define negate is truth or affirm is still judge obligation to vote on the truth or falsity. Always common usage abundantly care for any role of valid forces external one of the only truth is insurance of the debate. I agree with statements true. Constitutivism outweighs ways because you don't have the jurisdiction, not true tested. Chess player rules of more good. The proper argument means that it controls the internal link because B point logic any rule the collapse to the true test and proves that if I see I'm always the same as I'm true. This is a question of truth things in here and means the rule of mutually exclusive first and then agrees the resolution is false. The challenge is some secondly statements which are made assumptions the resolution to C point is inclusion. Any offense can function under truth and no specific rule about whether your resistance is bad for inclusive is because technical skill, comprehensive debate, and comprehensive rule about truth testing. The only way I'm better for education, engaging in debate. Anything solves real world implication of the thought experience doesn't do anything. The neg may not mislabel any terms or arguments as independent voters. If I prove that it's independent voters dependent on some external standard, then it violates A point strategy. They can make the one error possible by believing every single argument is an independent voter, forcing me to respond to them, which I can't be point. Engagement theory, the tunnel brain impacts the various kinds of repression or exclusion. There's no way for the F to engage in. It's just list off strategic independent voters. Induction fails. Induction assumes that things will happen the same as happen in the future because it begs the question of what happened in the past. Logically fallacious must concede my offense to be key to fill out theories and compare any points about us to determine the abuse of inequality would be possible without the right people. You can evaluate theory off the flow decision making better norms considered with voters. C point theory doesn't produce the best rule with debate. The D point things that in the debate runs the real world. They actually did shield the purpose and norms of debate. E point is contradiction to voters. Beneficial activity. F is the theory says bad norms because we determine the interest of other enter best version in the answer vote. G point theory is paradoxical. Limits argument concede the validity. It is H and not jurisdictional because additionally vote on someone to prove the resolution. The resolution does prove the debate is not a voter. Methodological pluralism is sustainable. We impact your notion of science to exclude belief or belief or 14 plans develop pluralism is sustainable. You can never adequately defend the physical process being compatible with knowledge opportunity and nuances collective render it sustainable and then they must only defend its quote. The rest of the state's point for both sides defending other conference when it's trash is supercharged. Today's debate widespread the F to negative debater going to the F into the dark. Key to fairness because the negative always has an advantage for the round people at the world playing sitting on the counterpoint begs the question of being asked the resolution. Limits the discussion of the acting creative comedian priorities, the rationale for it to focus on whether or not we should from the talk in the negative is benefit from applying the resolution on both sides of debate, what should be done. There's no theoretical basis for the existence of counterpoints. There are reasons as to why they're done. They're both currently to ask provide long-standing traditions are abandoned in an untried alternative. There's nothing about the negative arguing whether or not they should stay in the status quo.
Why is the GCB real?
That's the entirety of the framework.
Yeah, I agree. Can you explain it?
Yeah, sure. So the first premise is that everything that exists that is not the GCB has potential for existence.
So doesn't that assume... All right, let's go on the second premise.
Okay. Premise 2 is that there is no precondition for the GCB existing, i.e. it exists independent, whereas everything else is dependent on something, i.e. that chair exists because some factory made it, or I exist because my parents made me. The GCB is independent of that.
Why doesn't that presume the existence of a GCB though?
No.
Why not? Okay. What's the third premise?
No, the argument is just that nothing else can determine whether or not its existence is actually that.
Wait, so if the GCB does not exist, so everything relies on something else, so that means something must have created us all. Why can't scientific theories of the universe like the Big Bang be true where...
Because the argument is that something had to create those, that...
Okay, but that relies on the fact that stuff has already been created, right?
No, the whole argument is stuff wasn't created.
Okay, are there offensive reasons to reject the negative debater?
Yeah.
Alright, can you list them?
I guess it would depend on what do you mean. Like, the offense is a reason to reject the negative debater.
Theoretical reasons.
I mean, you haven't done anything yet, so I don't know.
Okay, but let's say if just the violations that would be reasons to drop the debater.
I mean, again, that's dependent on the 1NC strategy. I don't know what you're going to do.
No, but nothing in the 1AC is a reason to reject the team.
No, there's tons, that's the whole...
Okay, then what are the reasons, what are the arguments that justify reject? Please don't play coy, we know how this debate is going to go.
Every you can be implicated offensively as a reason to drop you.
Okay, alright. What is the reason to reject the debater?
Under true testing, we have reasons as to why that affirms.
Okay, so just true testing?
Arguments as inclusion. Neg must only defend the status quo.
Why must the neg defend the status quo?
There were multiple reasons. The first point is that the resolution is a stasis point. If you don't defend the quo, then it's completely unpredictable.
Okay, it's unpredictable that you have to respond. Alright, great. What else?
Let's see here. I mean, again, also you must concede the offense.
Why? Why must I concede reasons to vote for you?
It's key to philosophical education, which is intrinsic to LD.
What constitutes AF offense?
LD is a values debate.
All right.
So
what constitutes AF offense?
AF offense, the section labeled offense,
What about your framework? You just said LD's value debate. Doesn't that mean
Yeah.
I should concede your framework? So
no,
do I?
no, obviously no. We should have a framework debate.
All right, I'll take prep. We're doing 5, right? Theory. So you say theory is incoherent. Does that mean that theory would that we can't evaluate theory and it's not a reason to reject the team?
Well, obviously, again, it's contingent on the 1C strategy. I also have reasons that independent.
Okay, well, wait. Why would that not apply to all the spikes?
Well, because one, we have implicated that the spikes implicate like. It's not a question of paradigm issues. We have made reasons that's why, absent paradigm issues, we still vote on spikes.
All right. All right, so so the status quo, so we have to defend the status quo, right? Should slaves have not resisted through the Underground Railroad?
That's not the status quo right now.
No, but back in like the 1850s, should slaves have not resisted the status quo? Because your logic is timeless, right?
No, that's not the argument.
Why is it different?
Well, because one, that presumes that the GCB's will is not infinitely good, which I would contest is false.
So wait. So
Two,
back in the
that's
18
not the
no.
case.
Let's talk about this. Back in the 1850s, when slavery was around, that was God's perfect will at the time.
No, that's not the argument at all.
Okay, then how can you justify the existence of slavery at that time?
No, that's not the argument. The argument is not that like all people do good things. The argument is that the will or the way that the world works is always going in the right direction because of the GCB, i.e. things will get better over time because the GCB's will does.
Over time, so we should just wait for the status quo to get better.
The argument is we have no authority to question what the GCB says.
All right, stop prep, 201 left. It'll be 3, then the nonsense theory stuff, then the framing. So should I like put it on the drive, then you'll send it out?
I mean, yeah, I guess I would.
All right. Oh, wait, actually, more questions. Are there like a priori reasons for why the affirmative is true?
Yes.
Like just textually, like the resolution is a
Yes.
tautology?
Yes.
What?
Affirm means to state as a fact.
Okay,
So
anything
I've stated
else?
The resolution is a fact.
Why is the resolution, is it because of like the definition of resolved?
No. It's a completely different a priori. That's somewhere else in the case. No, I'm just kidding. It's not actually in the case. The only a priori is the affirm a priori.
Okay, great, lovely. Stop prep 129. And I'll send it out. Where it is freezing up. All right, it's on the USB here.
Yeah. called?
It should be called 1NC doubles. If there are multiple, the cap K is on the top. And you also have to like sitting down.
Yeah, that's fine.
When you're doing like the line by line on the underneath, just be like really like loud when you signpost. Be like 6 point. Like
Okay, yeah.
Alright, it should be semantic.
There might not be a lot of like explicitly like 6 point.
just be like whatever the argument
Yeah,
is.
yeah, no, I got you. And let me know when y'all have it. You're good? Other judges? Joshua, you good?
Yeah.
Alright. First off is the cap K ethical frameworks that dictate universal obligation, ignore the inequality produced by the application of rules in the classified society. Orientate 03, the judgment is universalizable if this principle holds for a similar person in similar circumstances. The problem concerns the contradiction between a demand for universalizability, the guarantee of fairness and impartiality, and inherent injustice and unfairness of seeking universalized moral norms in a classified society. The insistence of universalizability forces different norms on the agents and provides it inherently unfair until all exploitation of man by man is ended. Morality cannot be generalized. The result is enshrinement of a system of moral rules that are intrinsically unfair and classifies one class interest as dominant. The corresponding obligations that express the dominant class towards the corresponding moral code becomes on a code of universal class by bias morality. The class divisions preclude the condition necessary for the principle of universalizability function. And also defending the status quo is the link. It means we cannot resist against existing capitalist structures. The critique outweighs the case for about 15 ecological economic crisis militarism when you transform and call politics against challenges the fundamentals of capital since the Jordan we admit some mass distinction capitals to explosive inequalities. The economic landscape is littered with the rise concentration of wealth capital spreading global poverty canceling over endless broken systems. DNA set on track religious course with nature and solutions to be legitimate promising temporary management to goal test build transform politics cable zero system away from it's something that's destructive passage politics must challenge the fundamental and that turns ethics GJ can deal for our ethical political responsibilities to confront the constitutional violence of capitalism and obscene anonymization of millions who are subjugated throughout the world. Capitalism attempts to naturalize by presenting its outcomes that were sound judgment in a neutral marketplace. The human cost of inherent global poverty and the degree of life chance cannot be calculated when the existing economic rationale social exclusion remains misdefined enables. And the alternatives vote negative stop participating in capitalism heretic forties for capitalism and MPI capital structure all the mattering wealth power meaning until there's nothing left to capital structure corporation governments wasn't simply been a capitalist relation on father simply rejecting we stop participating in capitalism support capital start participating activities that build new world times to undermine the old stuff possible versus strategies calls for replacing capitalism with new civilization capitalism improvements further reform strategy does not call for reform capitalism we can sometimes win some sort of improvement we cannot form a system of the strategy of gutting and eventually destroying capitalism requires minimizing utilizing image not merely reform otherwise can you stop time my timer didn't work what time is it?
It's 5:10.
Thanks. Second off is util. One is only consequence of an action should be analyzed because only they are measurable and verifiable. The only consequence of intrinsic impact on others like harm and death to the goodness of consequence should be measured through hedonism because everyone can feel goodness and back to pleasure in some way and be all their goods collapse of pleasure e.g. freedom mass because it lets agents pursue their own ends that we see maximize for everyone and if also we should maximize something good be util treats everyone as equal in decision calculus rather than privileging subsets see privileging subsets allows for dominated by the co-option by dominant groups that's standards maximize expectable being independently extinction outweighs the trillions of people in future generations means the future holds a lot of value which extinction destroys as always, their offense are firm regardless of whether they are down to be a great wish. We need to be allowed to assign value to be competing moral theories. See, moral theories are formulated prior to the unforeseen human capacity for collective death, so you can't rely on them in situations of eccentricity. No coherent moral theory can allow for extinction to its actual specificity. Governments must aggregate, or colleges must aggregate, since every policy they do benefits someone, harms others, which means aggregate trace for his action. B, they lack wills and intentions because they're collective. C, no active mission distinction. They vote on, they evaluate policies, so an action is an explicit act taken. They're responsible for their students, and it comes from because different different ethical sort of orientations. Yeah, here's Palmer 15, the reduced anxious risk, the most important thing. Their children's punch and feature people and well-being is given 0.00 1% weight on consequences not viewed latter matter million version of dandology and project must consider prone to that's 5 very strong reason due to its accidental risk. They would even 39% sure they would have reason for moral to reduce accidental risk. Next office 2020 down to an because of impeachment focus, but distraction on Trump rally is based Olsen 930 Trump's strategy of impeachment rallying on the Republican supporters by buying them populism this will resonate with the base and keep Republican voters behind Trump focusing on less partisan backers. A populist approach is likely to resonate people on the Trump train once the base is secure. Trump can pivot off new relations attack them about local public sentiment is most important. Washington Senator remove Trump from office. This is a fight for 2020. Democrats are successful. They will lock in the Americans to remove his tenure if they stumble. Won't take much to give Trump a majority. And Trump's base motivated by protecting privilege. The plan is the lightning rod chain. 19 white American conservatives believe class was open up. The base one sugar lives. The Carlson predicted that Trump was best bet to be Clinton. Trump was running against a corrupt establishment. Preview Trumpism had most effective Indian politics of diversion and advances. How voters from asking questions of outreach that African American students have Harvard special graduation ceremony. They find much to like these fools. We're talking about racial bias of standardized testing as evidence of clinical steroid cause extinction. Strong 19 years of Trump will be impossible to undo. 2020 will determine the global arms race with a high risk of nuclear accidents and nuclear after pulling the U.S. out of Iran agreement. And you will hope that Trump would lose in the successor will renew America's commitment to non-pearl if he is re-elected. Countries to pursue nukes, especially in the Middle East and Northeast Asia, to take this global non-proliferation regime. Our non-proliferation regime, the theory of self-operators are bad and you should reject them. It's reciprocity to create a structural skew where the negative has to answer multiple prior questions before even having a debate on substance, causing 2 months to distort topic education by making debate about random things like whether the affirmative said the topic. Don't vote on these blips. We get neutral in our arguments because I didn't know the implication of them coming out of the wanting to reject their Spike Thompson 15. Being the better debater should track with your ability to defend rather than higher arguments excludes individuals, especially those with learning disabilities, able to deal with spikes at randomness. One might miss a spike, then it's all over. You can attest an argument without knowing the way it is used and what force someone applies the spike. The conclusion is not there. Spike may seem reasonable, easy, but unreasonable. The one air debater from different regions, camps, and contexts interpret spikes differently. We should wait to verify how to use. And the role of the ballot for the debater that does the better debating prefers the only predictable role of the ballot because the only expectation we have coming to the round there is inherently self-serving. Additionally, only our interpretation includes all methods of debate, so preferred over theirs because it arbitrarily excludes different styles. True testing is a better one, justifies terrible and arguments like skepticism prairies that's carried at the top by relying on imaginary to exclude critiques that prevent deconstruction of harmful mindsets or bad language. That's a year old 3 justifies terrible topics like the domestic violence topic where debaters have to defend things to harm them. 4 excludes advocacy is key to method. B method debate that promotes advocacy in response to real world change, which also answers their plans arguments. 5 the conception of truth is arbitrary and not defined by them. 6 clubs are competing in terms because the truth of the resolution is determined if it's better than other words. Their definitions don't matter. Slogan and over 15 the terms of affirmative and negative are insufficient to produce universal rules on there are many definitions of very invalid. The work of speaker reports are prominently displayed as absurd of observant activity full of plans, counterplans, critiques of performance, and claim the constitutive nature to exclude these arguments. And we can be Shema-baiters. No reasons why agency is constitutive or why we can't be agents. And if theories, and if you should reject theory, that's a reason why none of these are reasons to drop the argument. You should just default to the critique, which should be a prior question because it sort of questions the affirmative and their norms and their performance in the first place. Drop the argument. There are multiple contradictory bidirectional rules in debate that are unpredictable and simultaneously unmeetable. It's worse than fairness because I should lose because I am mean infinite number of interrupts to just drop the argument. We get to group arguments obviously. Otherwise, it leads to the blip storms that are shit storms like the one AC where they'll just outtake us and go for like the conceded 8 B point. Being negative hard on this topic, there are no dissents then shift the advocate to speak first and last in this infinite prep on side of truth. There are evidence from 2018 Shaw published a new article saying no side bias. One our theory should be a reasonability persuasive defense. Other means you ignore our theory requires abandoning of substance set of norms, so that benefit must outweigh substance. One air theory is due to the advantage means the air negative. The one the two norms cover substance overcover theory because of GSP advantage. They get the persuasiveness of 3 air 3 minute 2 air B. Their response will be new implications. Evaluate the theory to benefit the 2 and a half. They didn't include weights. They're probably grabbing or minimize the chance on Pharisee intervene to get rid of that the LD theory. They need to win the entire app is good, not one layer. Obviously, no methodological pluralism. They're ad and stir, not invasing multiple layer. Arguments reject permissibilities. A bad model debate allows us to stay on face things are terrible like rape, racism, etc. are okay, which is terrible standard to teach high school students. Group to calculate consequences are not impossible and empirically possible to calculate all the times. And large institutions like colleges and the elders no action, which is where framing God. You should not justify statute code, justify things like slavery in the 1800s. Also, the Big Bang Theory disproves their arguments. We can know that everything was created without having a God to do it, proven by science.
Alright. Ready?
Yeah.
So, which framing matters, util or cap?
So our argument is that capitalism functions under sort of the utilitarian idea.
Okay, what's the link to the dissent?
To the dissed?
Yeah.
Right, so the idea is that when colleges like Hampshire sort of reaffirm this stand against standardized testing,
hold
it
on.
is
So let me do this clear, right? So okay, first of all, what's the status of the alternative on the critique?
conditional.
Okay, so if you kick the critique into 2R and go for the dissed, how does that work insofar as the aff is the squel?
No, so the argument, so it doesn't, the F is a reaffirmation, which would
Wait,
still,
wait, no,
it would
wait,
still
what?
link to our
The F
perception
defends
arguments.
the status
It would
quo.
still.
How does a
No, no, no,
dissent
no.
link to
The
the
F,
status
you defend a
quo?
plain text of Hampshire colleges doing
Yeah, but
whatever, which is a
Hampshire colleges are
reaffirmation.
implemented. The
It
F
is
is-
a
no, no, no.
reaffirmation
Okay, please tell me
of
how
that,
a
which
dissent
links to our
links to the
perception
status quo.
arguments. If not, that's a voter for
Okay,
fairness because it
that-
destroys negative ground.
Oh, okay, so you just didn't realize that the F defended the status quo.
No, I agree the F defends the
Okay,
status
that's
quo,
fine.
but
Let's go to your
it still
arguments
links
on
to our
the
perception
underview.
arguments because
Okay,
it's a
let's go to your
reaffirmation.
arguments on the underview. Are there any arguments independent of like this fairness stuff that are independent reasons to vote negative?
Like a prioris are bad. Like
Okay, yeah, that's fairness dependent. I'm asking for like, is there?
I mean, obviously,
independent
fairness
voters,
doesn't matter in a
is there stuff
vacuum. It
like
has
that?
implications for education as well.
Okay,
Like, we read
that's-
arguments
that's
about
fine.
topic education, which is
Okay,
independent
yes,
of fairness,
that
obviously.
Doesn't matter. I really don't care about that. Can you please just tell me what are the independent voters in the 1C?
The independent a prioris are bad. Like, you should.
Okay, what in this doc did you not read?
Yeah, so I didn't read the 2 to 5 points on drop the argument. I did not. Oh, on util, I didn't read the epistemic modesty or Maca school stuff, or that analytic.
Okay.
I didn't read the line by line on the permissibility stuff, and I didn't read anything under group the Calcandites. On the contention, I didn't read like anything under don't wait for the squo to get better.
Okay. Did you read the? Oh, okay, so you didn't read any of that stuff.
No.
All right. Did you read any reasons that presumption of permissibility flow neg?
The argument is just you should reject the idea of permissibility because it's a bad model of debate that justifies things like saying race and racism are
So
rape
no
and racism are
arguments against
okay.
presumption though, right?
I mean, I guess, but we have offense.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's not the position. But okay, that's fine. Let's go back to the critique. What is the link if the app again is the status quo?
Well, it's about the framework you first defending the status quo makes us
so it's linked to the
defending
framework,
the
and where is that link? Please
defending. So
include
that's the
that.
Lorente evidence, but there's also a second link about defending the status quo. It makes us unable to
You
contest
just
current
put that
structures
in
of
the tag.
capitalism.
The card says nothing about that.
Right? No, the second link is an analytic. I'm sure, but if you want to like,
Analytic link. Okay.
yeah, what? It's a philosophy argument. Why can't you have analytical links? Half the framework justifications are analytical. If you want to reject those, then sure, vote neg.
That's fine. 5 minutes to
Oh, the excluding critiques is a D rule argument that may count as an like voter. I'm not sure what you mean by that though.
Okay. Alright, 220 left. The order's going to be overview, the affluent review, the case, the NC in order.
Alright, so overview on like the app.
Yeah.
Okay, then the underview section, then what after that?
The case, then the neg in order.
Okay, so the K, then util, then the dised. Is there a doc?
Yeah, I'm sending that right now.
And here's the,
Can you just check your email to see if you got any of them?
yeah.
I really didn't flush yours.
Oh, yeah, is it Cool Guy 69?
Yeah. Alright, the F is sent. All the stuff's just at the bottom.
Oh, yeah, I got it. Right, let me download it.
Alright. Is everyone good?
Yeah.
Alright.
On the interview, extend the second point that all fairness issues come prior to NC arguments because the 8 point, the 1 year cannot engage on multiple other sensors at times. You have conceded the independent of paradigm issues. That means that you vote affirmative. You also conceded inclusion as a fallacy in origin, which takes out several of your arguments on the truth testing debate. Now the line by line, you have conceded all 3 reasons to purpose truth testing, extend the 8 point of text as constitutivism, and then the reason as to why this outweighs because the judge's only obligations with a jurisdictional claim absent fairness in education. Now extend the theories incoherent, extend the 8 point that the ballots always determine often abuse inequalities that value around. This takes out all of your fairness reason as to why you reject me on the case, which independently proves it false. You also have conceded the induction fails argument. You conceded that induction assumes that things always happen in the same way that happened in the past, which begs the question of how they'll happen in the future, which definitionally takes it out. Also extend the B point introducing the logic that all of your rollabout collapses because it assumes it is true. If I say I'm standing up, it's the same thing as I'm saying it's true standing up. All of your arguments are dependent on the round. You say it justifies bad things, but you should hold me to what I'm actually doing. Now extend the affirm up here, the affirm to state a fact that is definitionally, insofar as I have stated, a fact of the resolution that means you affirm on face was completely conceded, outweighs on strength of link. You also conceded no 2NR response to F spike because it kills life strategy. This was out of the F that one completely conceded no 2NR response because otherwise I have absolutely nothing to leverage. You have also conceded the B point that it kills clash because we get to start the theory debate lesser in a later time in the debate, which takes out most of the majority of your arguments. The last argument we're going to go for is neg must defend the status quo. You who's completely conceded the do not allow embedded clash on this. You have conceded the do not allow any embedded clash on the interview extend the Plan 89 evidence, which indicates that the negative must only defend the status quo. Insofar as there's no option for negative fiat, there's no other thing that it can defend. This is a completely conceded argument. Takes out the case. Over you conceded all the reasons as to why the GCB exists, extend the premise that everything exists because the GCB has potential for non-existence, extend the wolf evidence indicating that the GCB has no conditions for existence, and because all conditions for fulfill your only response is that it justifies bad things for. No, it's not. Insofar as the GCB is always going to make things better in the future. And the second point is you have conceded that we cannot trust our own minds insofar as they are not all knowing like the GCB. So for all we know, the things could get better in the future, which means independently that is not true. Do not allow 1 year blip to get out of this. Now the offense extend the last 15 card indicating that we the getting rid of standardized has led to this. Also extend the shot the 19 card affirming to start. You continue to empirics out with all of your analytics and so far as it did test the assumption behind analytics in the first place. And you have also conceded that. Let's go to the util arguments. Over to util, we hijack it because hell is infinite suffering, which means that in the world where you vote negative, it leads to infinite suffering. Insofar as if we don't listen to God, insofar as we want our framework, that means it's infinite suffering. And second point is you have conceded induction fails, which takes it out independently. It's a reason true. Reject them for the reason for them to reject that. Over to the disad permutation, do both. We are the status quo. There is no link to a disad when the app is the status quo. The critique. Cross-apply the plan subject, it was completely conceded the negative cannot defend anything other than the status quo. You've also conceded that you may not defend anything other than the status quo because of predictability. This implicates to a higher level of fairness. You have conceded after fairness issues come first. Also extend a valid to theory debate after the 1 year because there's a 7-6 prime time scale, and we both get 1 speeches after that. Insofar as that is true, the debate is over. You sign your ballot affirmative right now. Insofar as they have conceded that. Also, you have conceded roll of ballot cross-apply the reason this is why truth testing collapses. Your roll of ballot. Insofar as that is not true, independently conditionality is a voting issue. 8 point reciprocity, the institutional to defend one thing. You could go for multiple things in the 2R, which makes the debate completely impossible to be pointed to remove the entirety of the clash because I have to engage in multiple layers and we cannot actually actually engage in that. Now, overview to all of your reasons as to why like getting into sorry, you conceded that if I win one layer vote after extend the AC is reactive and there's no ability to collapse in the one area. Your arguments on the 2 and your arguments in the 1 and C about why they're just blippy are just underwarranted insofar as we win any of the framing issues here. That is the reason as to why you rejected. Now on your opera race bad argument, one, this implicates the fairness, but you have conceded theory is incoherent insofar as that is true. That doesn't matter. You make also on your Thompson 1. I mean, despite is defined as a sharp metal object. The F is none of those two. There's no Brownline 4 despite is rejected at 3. Even if they win this card, Thompson advocates for giving new 2 and R responses. Also 4 is that Thompson's card was written at a time where people were like bracketing a priori in the card, which is obviously not something that the F does. There's no reason why that's actually why that's good. Now your argument about true sets and why deconstruct bad mindsets again. Insofar as we have one constituent claim that implicates to a higher jurisdiction level, they did not contest jurisdiction in the 1R, which means even if this 2 and R is amazing on the critique and amazing on these paradigm issues, they just conceded jurisdiction out of the 1R.
All right, I have 130 left. We'll go the critique, then I guess util, then theory, then the advantage, or framework, whatever. Let me know when y'all are good.
Yeah.
Good. First of all, someone who's supposed to be really good at line blind, they dropped a lot of stuff. The Keiko's completely conceded that top level it outweighs capitalism causes extinction. They concede the far-bought evidence that right now capitalism is moving us towards towards militarism, endless environmental extraction, and generally extinction results in climate change that kills billions of people and falls the hardest on the worst off, which is an independent D-roll for wide outweighs. Now they are the link argument. They are removed to the status quo, which they have conceded, which means that we cannot resist against current elements of capital. We cannot resist against current structures of capitalism. The fact that no effective resistance has happened before is prove that they don't resolve the link implicitly, but also the fact that the link is conceded means no new two-way arguments on this page because it spikes on the neg perhaps there's no perms, but the alternative does solve the entirety. They've conceded that rejection of capitalism would hollow out those structures. Only individual rejections like a negative val can do so. Now this doesn't use VL, which means it doesn't link to any of their plans offense, but they've also conceded our argument that alts and counterplans are key to method debates, which are important for advocacy skills because we can weigh between different arguments. That was on the line of the true testing stuff. That's key to education and portable skills, which outweighs all of their arguments on scope because the only thing that spills over none of this theory clusterfuck will come out of this round. But the advocacy skills we get by evaluating counterplans, which their model of debate would exclude, is valuable, which is a conceded reason for why all of our arguments outweigh. Now all of their no fairness or theory arguments take out this argument and conditionality which means you shouldn't vote on any of it and should just vote on the critique. But they've also conceded you should value theory after the 2 and R because they get because all of my responses to their theory arguments are new and they get the persuasiveness of a 2 error collapse, which means that you should evaluate all their theory arguments after the 2 and R, considering they did all the drops. It's pretty much game over. It always all their sort of arguments on conceded strength of link, especially, and only our evidence our only arguments were the persuasive. I'll do the roll of ballots up on the other page. They say conditionality is good. We get one preferred. One is next to always. The can change in the 1 error with add-ons, clarification. The plan text are blowing up being terms of the 1. See their interpretation incentivizes sandbagging the apps best off until late in the debate once the negative locked in positions that prevents clash and use negative strategy, which kills education because arguments will be shipped to the night and the 2 and R will be contrived, which makes being negative possible because negative strats don't engage their offense. They always ask you because they can always pivot based on the 1 and C, but without content. The negative is unflexible error neg because an reactionary 2 error always makes up for negative views because they set the terms for the debate of procedurals and as villain are worse because perms in 1 error. I want to see some defenses can't check them, try or die, frame across the neg, read impact in every issue, which incentivizes worse. They said writing and contrived topicality arguments. Education has to outweigh fairness because it's the only terminal impact debate we get out of them, which outweighs on scope, and it's the reason why schools fund debate, which turns fairness. That's in construct, which turns their reciprocity argument and their clash argument. That they say they win 1 layer. They conceded the argument in the 1 and C. They have to prove the author is a good idea in general, not 1 layer. And if I win truth testing, it definitely answers this. Now, at the top of the utility debate, they say that hell is infinite suffering. This presumes that they win all of their framework arguments, but B, that happens way after that happens. They justify the conception of a GCB, not the idea of hell or heaven, which means this doesn't link. And also just sort of in general, this happens way far out, but all of our impacts happen first, which means that always on time frame. They say conceded induction fails. They conceded the argument on the page about how calc indices are empirically disproven because governments and colleges use utilitarianism. That was also the actual specificity argument, which means that induction fails doesn't matter. Also, there's no impact contradictions at all, which means it doesn't matter. And we're hosing them on the util debate. They've conceded our argument about extinction. Our Palmer evidence says that outweighs because it kills trillions upon trillions of future generation, which outweighs all the health stuff anyways, and outweighs on strength of link. Now, the top of the preamps page, there are a couple of arguments you have to win. First is that we get embedded clash. They just asserted that we don't in the 1 ER, and you shouldn't let the 2 ER blow this up. But they've conceded the argument that we do get embedded clash because otherwise it leads to blip storms like this 1 EC where they'll go for like a small conceded point, which undermines any ability for neg preparation. The second is all of the arguments about persuasiveness of a 2 ER collapse and stuff also mean that there's no time series or no that time series goes the other way because they get sort of last arguments, which is more persuasive, which answers all of their arguments about fairness, violation and stuff. Third is the competing worlds debate. If I win this and none of their offense matters, you should vote on the critique top level. Is that they've conceded that only our interpretation is predictable. That is sort of the lens through which you have to view everything else because the internal link to predictability and clash. Without it, you can enforce a theory norm or enforce the role of the ballot, which zeroes out all of their offense, and it's worse because it trades off with substance, which is a conceded argument on the theory spike, which outweighs because of all the education wing I said before. And now they extend the jurisdiction stuff, but they've conceded the Shim invaders argument that constitutivism, that there's no reason why we have to be tethered as debaters, but rather we could be Shim invaders or any sort of other thing which means like authority is not necessarily constitutive, and jurisdiction arguments don't make sense, which answers their only argument. They say our role about collapses. They concede an argument for why theirs does because the way to prove the truth is sort of by proving a comparative world is false. They've also conceded the argument that they exclude offense like counterplans and whatnot, but we don't, which means they can't like ours can't collapse to theirs because ours is like theirs is way more exclusive. The a priori stuff, or they say no new responses. They conceded value of the theory debate after the 2 or also they've conceded that you should not vote on blips because the implications are new. They have no reason for why they're not, especially since they cross-applied and applied them to the 2 and R, which means we do get new responses, which justifies sort of everything. The plant seed and I stuff doesn't apply. They've also conceded advocacy skills. On the advantage, they conceded all of the Big Bang Theory stuff. That's in scientific reason for why we don't have to look to God for everything to be created. They said empirics outweigh, but that's science, which means it outweighs all their philosophical analytics. Vote neg. This round was ridiculous. Your timing prep, right?
Yeah.
much time do you have left?
Minute 20. All right. Yours the AF, true testing.
It's gonna go out.
Can someone get the judge?
Anyone?
I can do it. All right.
All right, so there was just the AF, true testing the K. So everyone good? Yeah. All right.
The framework was once again conceded. Extend the premise that the GCB has no conditions for existing necessarily exist. Those the Wolf evidence. This was completely conceded. Your only response is 5 seconds into 2 understanding the Big Bang happened. There is no implication of why this takes out, or not even a warrant for that to reject it on face. You can see the Pascal's wedge argument, which is what you're going to go for against your critique, which means that if we win our framework, that is the reason as to why you vote affirmative, because hell is infinite suffering and outweighs because the F is infinite goodness. That was conceded. The status quo is perfect. Send the last routine evidence indicating that we are the status quo, which means that you affirm on face. Insofar as this, the affirmative is the status quo. Now overview to the critique. There are a couple of framing issues. One, you conceded the plant's evidence. Again, your only response is advocacy sales, but extend the theory is incoherent. You have conceded theory is incoherent under the underview, which takes out all of the theory arguments. Extend the 8 point that the ballot is always determined off abuse and inequalities. Otherwise, it would be impossible to evaluate the round. So this means every single theory argument in the round, you just cross it off your flow. Every argument implicating the fairness or education goes completely off the flow. The Plants 89 is a jurisdictional claim as to why you do not get access to the counterplan. Extend it proper. This means that you cannot vote negative on the critique insofar as you do not answer the jurisdictional claim. Your only response is predicated on education, but insofar as you do not question your ability to read that in the first, is that takes it out. So extend the Plants 89 evidence proper, indicating that you do not have access to fiat or access to any of these arguments. Your only other responses are new, so that you do not grant them access. That takes out the critique. You have conceded that you presume that because you assume statements are true rather than false. That means independently the critique goes away. All that's left is the affirmative case. Now the truth testing debate. Extend the role of balance to go through the beta best true proves the truth or falsity resolution. Extend that the F must prove it true and the neg must false. Now your only responses here are fairness and education based. Cross apply the fairness and education. Go. Oh wait. Now extend the constitutivism argument. Your only responses is like we don't have to be debaters, but that's not the argument. The argument is contextual to affirm and negate. I.e., affirm is defined as to prove true. Negate is defined as to prove false. Insofar as that is true, that means the affirmative must prove it false. The negative must prove it false. That was a conceded argument. We're also going to go for the inclusion argument, which was completely conceded. Only truth testing includes all arguments. I.e., only under my rule about does all offense apply versus only under your rule about only certain arguments apply. That was conceded, which always on strength of link. Insofar as it determines whether or not we have inclusion in the activity in the first instance. Insofar as that is true, we'll go ahead and extend the conceded affirm a priori, which means affirm is defined as a state of fact. Insofar as that is true, you affirm on face because the resolution we stated it, which means it's already a fact, which means you affirm on truth testing on face. Now let's quickly go to the util debate overview. To your only response to the heaven and hell argument is that we didn't justify that. Yes, we did. Pascal's wager was literally in the app. Also, independently, we don't have to justify that. All we have to justify is that the status quo is perfect. Any shift from the status quo is always going to be infinitely bad. You say we outweigh on time frame because death happens. No, we impact turn your notion of death being bad. I.e., one is God willed those people to die in the first place, and the second part is that those people get to go to heaven sooner, which is more like pleasure in the first place, which outweighs because heaven is infinite good. So this round breaks down very quickly. There's just not any work done on the app. The app impacts turns the critique. Think about this logically. If the status quo is perfect, we have won that, then how can the critique impacts actually be bad in a world where the status quo is perfect? We have won that God is making the world better in the future, which means we impact turn the K, and we control the internal link to solving for capitalism because only the app can get rid of bad impacts. If capitalism is truly bad, God will just get rid of it in the future. The app was conceded.
Could be.
I have my car. Did you drive here? It's not Friday yet.
I would say.
Also, this is what happens. It's like 7 times where I am. And no one tells me, where are you? And I'll say this for him, and then there's just no response. The way you yeah, the first time last time I got paid. Yeah, that's how it usually we need more accountability. Yeah. Last year, they went like and then she was just like, oh, they just then they do care.
I imagine there's.
But he was like, John's like so much every year, and JP's like, okay, well, this is just spending like extra 10 times in all. And that's sort of how he goes.
That's actually so true.
Hey, we only need one more to turn it.
Yeah. I think I'm confident I have a good essay, but I think this is really good.
I think it might be the one.
I think it might be the one.
This is, I opened that and I'm like, absolutely. I saw like weird characters over here.
No, it doesn't.
I was like, this is old English.
Why do I know what it's
Middle English.
Sean, is being English
I literally don't look at it.
It's so nice. No, he wrote Old English.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chaucer sucks. I don't know why English teachers are like dead languages. It's like, dude, like they're just worse.
We do.
Like you have to fight the text to read it.
Yeah.
Why is it that all these values and stuff are so long ago?
Yeah.
What's the probability of that, right? Why can't they be recent?
There's contemporary texts.
Wait,
There's
wait, wait.
contemporary
That means
texts.
they carry the same messages.
I don't know if
There's something for them.
Well, I think it's more of, it's built on linguistic foundation, right? So it would be a disservice to not learn literature. But the classes definitely, this is with AP Holding, we did very fun good stuff.
Yeah, I like Golden. Golden was probably one of my favorite classes this year.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it's the last year I liked
It's because if you're not an English guy,
Yeah,
it's a hard class.
Everyone said Golden was tough.
he is.
You have to, yeah,
I didn't think it was as tough.
Oh.
I mean, it's not like it was impossible.
No.
But you have to actually give a shit.
I just
I just went to his like office before like class, like talk about my essay.
Yeah, that's what you need to do.
I wrote my senior research paper on the ride back from TFC because instead of flying into Louisville, we flew into some other city that was an hour and a half away because it was cheaper. So it's a diamond striving like JP and I were just like madly typing our essay that was already due. We got it in a 2-day extension. I did better than him. And then he was mad.
Flex.
And I actually did read my book. I just read the first.
Honestly, I didn't read many of the books.
Yeah, I don't think you can do
So, partake in the discussion so you understand what you're supposed to know.
I just read the intro and then wrote it. Themes and then
I did read like my the books that I'm research for.
Yeah. Like there's a video of this. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
I pay for food. Pretty good. Something else I It's my first time walking from campus to my work. Oh, this is abysmal.
yeah, but it's so much.
Like, I think Alex is probably
Or especially if I get like that.
Is it Alex
I'm just
still
like, well, I don't go because the guy's from Jersey Square. It's like, I can't.
You know when I have like all my leftovers and stuff, I'll store it.
Yeah,
I'll just eat it later.
I mean,
Even
And it goes bad.
yeah.
That is true.
So every time I vibrate, I'm like, oh, maybe it's just like, and then I'll make sandwiches and then the bread spoils.
Yeah, sometimes I practice it. And I'll eat it and I'm like, that wasn't very good.
Yeah.
It's like I'm paying for real stuff.
You make this oh, wait, let's talk about
Wait, soccer is off. Everyone's up.
Oh, you just He's what? Obviously, I don't want to go
Oh, okay, so.
Yeah.
I came to the video, but also, you know, I like
Oh, yeah.
understand it. Although I was kind of being aggressive and so.
Right.
So definitely reading like how you start and stuff and jump. Starting by itself is pretty. I think it's nice to use that.
Yeah, that happened. Literally like a full body part.
Yeah, but as for well, the thing is that he was thinking, it's just as he was.
I have to respond to her.
I don't know what it's makes me like 12 times.
Like you don't understand the
I don't understand like what it's referring to.
It's just practicality.
Why does anyone listen to Jake? Is the real question.
Because it's kind of a filthy argument.
But also like, yeah, they read the Marshall's article here. I'm just like, oh. People did that, or that would happen in my office.
Why do you have a
Wasn't Ben also?
I was like,
Are you defending the book as true?
because of GCB or Christian, it's weird. It's weird.
Wait, do we add someone to know me or need me?
What? No.
So, okay, let's proceed to make this. This Harvard lesson. We got all sorts of disgusting stuff.
Okay, so are we gonna go for like testing for one shift?
So they'll shift to the ECT for like 3 seconds to move the entire advantage.
The boss is also a benefit.
Yeah, we don't need to do that for that app probably.
Wait, is the impact just like economic? Do what? Do what for that?
Harvard Westlake.
NVIDIA.
Harvard Westlake. You don't think so? Very block dependent.
Yeah, no, we've got. Don't worry,
You don't
we have
you should
to
do the block dependent or sky dependent.
not for
Harvard Westlake.
not for
Or it's different.
it's the automation.
Yeah.
Oh, it's no, yeah. If they read automation, absolutely not. But if they,
Now, if they read the SAT thing, they will, because that's the plan. But if they just read this automation app, they'll just get rid of the entire college board. Then
yeah, we'll be fine.
we will say DOI.
Yeah, they're like it's
The
like
extensive medley of counterplans that we've constructed to deal with the stupidest advantage on the planet.
yeah,
We're also going to
there's
impact.
there's nothing intrinsic to the economy that has to help.
Yeah, no, like, here's a counterplan to deal with people losing their jobs to automation. Give them jobs.
We literally hire them.
Now.
We were gonna make the Yang Gang counter plan, but UBI wasn't. Oh, actually, we are doing this.
Oh, we are doing the Yang Gang.
Yeah.
And then
Just no card, but who cares?
Honestly,
you know what it is. We know what it is.
Yeah, the card is the one I say.
Also, no, but the other thing is they said that they create critical thinking little butterflies that innovate to slow warming.
We're like
You know what that does? Messes up the price of oil. Because the only thing that they could possibly do to do that is keep it in the ground, regulate it, or do renewables. And I have a link card that any one of them is enough.
Do you read
And that will cause.
Could I say some California creative students results in counterplan?
all right.
Could I say like students being creative results in counterplan?
After that round, though, I've lost my ability
solves
give a
the
shit
world
about like this
because of
outcome.
Russian separatists.
Also, wait, if it's a
This outcome matters immensely.
Yeah,
More
but
so just like on a
It's like the
personal
best
level.
impact card in the whole world, dude. It's like Putin would divert and they would fight the United States and Russian
So one is
separatists
Josh
would
Michael.
sell
He will not.
unstable
He will not vote, yes.
WMDs to ISIS.
Dominic Henderson used to do policy, but also help coach stuff. And then Devin Hernandez, he did some policy.
Getting rid of the SAT means that students think more critically, which solves
Climate change.
How does a Russia scenario work?
because the way those students would solve warming would be bad for oil.
Like we need to keep our students stupid so they don't
We need them
stumble
to be-
into a
we
way
need
that
them
destroys
to
the
be
Russian
like
economy.
ham and potatoes stupid.
They literally
They
need to
don't
just.
keep all the oil.
Let's start
in the
prepping for
sand.
quarters.
Yeah, that's what we were talking
Yeah,
about.
that's what we're doing. Yeah.
But yeah, so
None of the
anyway,
theory
so we
stuff made
have
any
that.
sense.
Yeah, so anyway, we have that and a medley of other arguments on display, including the econ team. Just like the college board econ team.
Wait, do we have that?
Yes. I have a card that's like it would just evacuate $5 billion from the economy overnight.
That's not
And then but the one in R will read a card that the speculative ramifications of the government removing an industry would derail the whole economy. And their impact is about like people losing their jobs, which means who cares?
Is that the face of a man who voted on a bad argument, or who is like, what the hell did I just watch? I can't tell.
Should have come for years too.
I did not want to. The entire it was a 4-minute underview.
I didn't even
Here,
hear
let me
any.
just show you. Let me.
Like, how do you understand?
Yeah, they didn't.
How do you know God is a theory? He does. I'm certain, in fact.
Just appreciate the one I say. I use that term. Oh, the decision is in.
I should go.
Alright, I guess I'll do this. So I was last in. Congratulations for getting to whatever round this is, at whatever tournament this is. It was a 2-1 decision for the affirmative.
I sat. Quite bluntly, this round is an absolute shit show. And like, just full disclosure in the future, I'm definitely not the judge you're gonna want for these rounds because I don't think you have warrants for pretty much any of the arguments you go for, considering that the AF justification is entirely premised off of theory or falls back onto GCB, which begs the question of like deputy actors or people that think like if this is GCB's will or whatever, then like argue with it or anything like that. But we can talk about that later, I guess. The entirety of the top part of the 2AR, the critique, is relying on the Plant's evidence with regards to theory, fairness, education, whatever we want to call these things, since it's really the same thing under 4 different titles. Problem is, 1, you say that the rest of this argument makes no sense and we should scratch it off our flow anyway, which begs the question of what I'm supposed to default to in terms of comparative metrics of evaluation. If you want to go for most of your induction stuff from the 1AR, fine. That at least gives me some metric by how I should evaluate these things if theory disappears. You'll probably have to do like warranted work on why I should default to induction. But given that, you've basically just like evacuated your own ability for me to evaluate why your theory arguments are true or why I should apply them to the critique. So I'm not really sure like why you say scratch these things off. Second, the Plant's evidence is about counterplans, not critiques. It's written by an old Baylor debater in like a time when Ks were not like a thing anyway. 2, it's also a criticism of why counterplans aren't necessary given that negs can like just defend the resolution and they don't need fiat. I'm not sure why that's a criticism of the neg position, considering the 2 and R is like, we're not fiating the alt. So I'm not sure why these are necessarily like criticisms of their model of debate, considering they don't defend these things. And they have just said that the status quo is bad, which is the role that you said they had to take anyway, right? You said that like AF has already said like the status quo is good, NEG has to say that that's bad. They said, cool, we will say the status quo is bad because CAP exists, and if GCP was going to fix it, it would have happened already, but there are no other movements that have done anything. The truth testing, the presumption that the AF is true only means that I presume that once the 1AC is spoken that it's true, that it is like up to that point. I don't know why this is like temporally durable though, where like you're right just because you say that you're right, as opposed to what happens when someone decides to like read Clash. Now the discussion of like why they're not allowed to have embedded Clash, then like what Clash are they allowed? And seems like even in that world you've said they don't even get that Clash because you're perfect. Which means like I don't know what we're doing here. The GCB stuff, you're both saying that like each other dropped your stuff. You're like, they drop GCB, they drop Big Bang. Like there's absolutely no comparative evidence except the 2NR's argument that if we have an evaluative frame from like Wolf or Pascal that is all based on empirics, you have not divorced your empirics from science. I don't know why these things like aren't true, considering that they're just like dropped in the 2AR. Even if I somehow gave you the GCB stuff, that they make the comparative claims on the K that says previous movements fail, so disproves the effectiveness of like GCP's will anyway. Conceded rest of the critique makes it an easy ballot, in my opinion. I think, given other people's decisions, I don't know. I think the easiest thing would have been to just post up on the GCP's OI racist, and we should just like fuck his plans. Because I don't think like slavery was cool, and I don't think settler colonialism was cool, and why the fuck does it take 500 years to fix these things? So it's like, sure, you might have a plan, but like, you could work faster if he's perfect. Or just like, if he's perfect, then why did the plan start off not perfect? I don't know.
So, I gotta go like the opposite direction on like his RFD. So, I go to AF. I think White's winning the truth testing well about, and the new 2NR arguments about fairness and education go away. Even if it's a shitty argument, it's still there. If he's winning that argument, then all your theory claims get taken out because they rely on fairness and education being valuable. Then I could vote off the a priori comfortably, because a priori was functionally conceded. And you're winning these you're extending these arguments about like a priori being bad for debate, but they rely on the premise of fairness and education. If those premises of fairness and education go away, then there's no reason for me to evaluate those arguments anymore, and I could just vote on the a priori. I thought like the argument about the Big Bang, like on the GCB, like you were just like Big Bang. I'm like, okay, all right, what does that mean? So then I went through all the flows, right? So like on the critique flow, right? If he's winning that, it doesn't matter it doesn't matter if capitalism's bad. It was already willed by the GCB, and that if the GCB wanted to happen, it'll eventually go away. Which means if he's winning GCB, that means that eventually it will go away, which is good under his framing mechanism, or under the GCB, which means that we no longer care about cap. And we're only looking, and then on the theory stuff, yeah, just like I just said, the argument was taken out with like the no 2NR responses to fairness and education.
Can I ask you a question real quick? And this is more just because like I'm confused on some of the construction of the F. If they don't, or like if they're going for induction, like then why do we inductively believe that CAP goes away just because the GCP
Well, because like the way I guess it was the way it was spun and round was just like, oh, like if things happen in the past and if induction fails, that means things happen in the past, and that relying on like a past premise means that it won't like be resolved. So it's only by using like more induction. Using induction,
but its current existence would inductively prove that it will exist in the future because it's not one.
I mean, I guess, but I mean that's not the way it was like spun around.
Real quick, and tend to agree with like 99% of what both of these gentlemen said. I just want to point out a couple of nuances. I thought the truth testing argument was very true. I thought the affirmative was winning that argument. But in addition, I thought there was some complication on the theory debate up at the top. And so I then just fed through the capitalism debate. And I think the problem for me on the capitalism debate was the lack of direct response and nature of some of the arguments that he's making about the GCB and how we cannot conceptualize the decision making of the GCB. And I think that problematizes my interpretation because you're not making a direct answer to that. And so this suffering, all of this kind of stuff, if heaven is better, then maybe that's in terms of the concept of religion, I think that, or deities, I think that makes it very difficult for me to understand, or for the position to understand what is really going on. And I thought that argument was just not dealt with at all.
Okay, so I guess I have a few questions. For the truth testing stuff, what offensive standard to prefer truth testing did you vote on? Was it the jurisdiction stuff?
Yeah.
How's that not theoretical?
Wait. How did you evaluate the stuff about Schmabader's jurisdiction, agency, and constitutivism?
Well, I think the Schmader argument doesn't make sense. I don't think I had a good explanation for me because you were just we could be Schmaders and but you were just we could just be Schmaders. I'm what's the implication of us being Schmaders, or how does it relate in the context of the affirmative?
So I guess part of this question is in a world where does that just mean that even if it's technically conceded, the neg has a higher threshold to explain that than GCB? Because I can't really determine a difference in terms of the depth of explanation between these arguments. So I guess why doesn't technical concessions take over there?
I think even if it was on a pure technical concession, I think the explanation of the GCB was made more sense to me because it was I don't know, all the points and all the sub points underneath it. I just read through it during class, and it made more sense. But this, you go to the doc where it's the Schmaders, he was we're Schmagents or Schmaders. That was only an explanation. There was more explanation or warranted analysis that made more sense in the ACL. So
more in the 1 and C and in the 1 and C doc?
Yeah, I was just looking at the arguments afterwards, because I don't feel they were one, everything was all over the place. So you also gotta think about how it is to evaluate the round as a judge, because everything was all over the fucking place. And your theory arguments were made on the critique flow, theory arguments were on the underread, theory arguments were made on the AC flow. It was all over the place, and so you had to kind of shuffle through all the bullshit.
So I just have two quick questions. So the first is on the truth testing stuff. I guess why does no theory mean that fairness and education aren't voters, but jurisdiction is? I guess why is that not also a theoretical concern?
On what basis could jurisdiction matter if not fairness or education?
I agree with the question. I questioned that myself and tried to figure out how there was a distinction. And I sort of determined, because there was no sort of evaluative justification in terms of making that application to the jurisdiction argument, that I didn't see how that specifically applied, because I thought it was more of a structural sort of a constitutive type of thing as opposed to an issue of abuse and how that's structured.
Okay.
So on what basis could that be true if not those things? If we conceded econ impact defense and went for the econ DA, you would obviously no. I know you would not make the cross application. Sure. What justification could there possibly be for this argument if not fairness or education?
I just think it's for me, it was just a lack of application of that argument. But there was a lot of application issues all over the place, because it was all over the place.
So you evaluated it not as a structural constitutive thing, so then I guess how did the Schmabader's thing factor in for your calculus? Because
they just said they didn't understand the explanation.
Well, he said that, but he said it was about constitutivism and...
It's just is there...
Yeah,
I'm just very curious, what is the reason for this jurisdiction argument? On what basis is...
That really wasn't the basis for my decisions.
Yeah, no, I know, I feel like I'm asking the wrong person a little bit, but
jurisdiction claims are usually based on as obligations as judges, how we have
right.
how to
right.
the
constitutive obligation.
It's more based on branding argument, how we have to view the debate
how is
itself.
It?
Yeah, but not based on education or fairness. But if the jurisdiction claim is what we ought to vote on, that's not necessarily connected to education or fairness.
How do you decide that if not based on those things?
Well,
Like,
it's just
what is
like
the, like what could the, you know, like is it because debate needs to be educational? Is it because it needs to be fair? Like what other role for the judge is it if not adjudicating one of those two things? Like
I mean, it's like the purpose of debaters is to set like framing mechanisms on how we have to evaluate the round. Those framing mechanisms are given to us, and we just have to look through the lens of those mechanisms. If it's not necessarily connected to fairness or or education, I mean, like sure, like we don't have to evaluate them because it was just made on like a purely like evaluate for the truth of the resolution. I just have to look at whether the resolution is proved truth or false, and then that's how I can go forward with my decision.